Mayor, City Council, members of the public. My name is Sulma Maciel. I'm the Director of the Office of Racial and Social Equity. I am here to introduce item 3.4. It's an informational item on the resolution on federal recognition for Muwekma Ohlone tribe. Just as a reminder, during the August 7th Rules Committee meeting, the committee requested that the city staff return to a San Jose City Council meeting to address the following questions. 1, background on the federal recognition process. 2, the impact the council resolution would have on other tribes in the area. And 3, if the resolution were to pass, what would happen next? The item was later deferred at the August 27th council meeting, and subsequently the item was revised at the September 4th Rules Committee meeting. And at that meeting, the committee approved to make today's 3.4 item an information-only item, meaning no action will be taken by the City Council today. So joining me is Dr. Carrie J. Malloy, Assistant Professor of Native American and Indigenous Studies at San Jose State University, specializing in Indigenous and Genocide Studies. He's an enrolled member of the Yurok tribe and has over 15 years of experience working with federally recognized tribes and tribal organizations. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Carrie Malloy, who will address the questions that were asked at the August 4th Rules Committee meeting.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I was asked to provide an overview of federal recognition, and so we're going to start way back, and we're going to come forward. Since first contact, there's always been some form of European nations recognizing the indigenous nations of this continent. That plays out in two very separate ways, and it gets complex when we get to California. So we're going to start on the East Coast, which we're all familiar with, and then we'll come here, because this is a little different. European nations recognized that the nations that had always occupied and lived and managed and stewarded the land of what we now call North America were sovereign nations. They entered into treaties with them. The Dutch and the Haudenosaunee entered into a treaty. Britain entered into treaties. As we know, treaties are international law. That had been the practice that the United States inherited after the revolution in 1776. Prior to 1776, George III issued the Royal Proclamation of 1763, which solidified in British law that the management of the relationship between Britain and tribes would be held at the central government level. After the Revolution and the founding of the United States and the Constitution, and supported by the decisions in what we call the Marshall Trilogy, Johnson v. McIntosh, Cherokee Nation v. Georgia, Worcester v. Georgia, the federal government has and remains the primary and only governmental agency that is responsible for federal tribal relations. It creates a federal trust responsibility, which I'll talk about in a minute. Spain did not operate on that same principle. Spain and Mexico did not enter into treaties with tribes. They laid out a series of requirements for indigenous people called the requirements that said, you have a choice. You convert to Catholicism, you recognize the authority of the king, you recognize our authority, or we have the right to declare just war on you. That didn't mean they stopped recognizing that indigenous nations were there and operational. It just meant they operated differently. When the United States assumed control of California with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, it imported the same process that it had been using to deal with tribes. Up until 1978, that process was sort of convoluted. It could be by treaty, it could be by a legislative agreement, it could be by legislation that authorized the president to issue an executive order to recognize a tribal group or recognize a reservation or establish a reservation. That process has remained in flux for a while. So a lot of it was done at the administrative level. In California, because of the way in which colonization occurred here and the way in which the United States assumed control of this territory, a whole new system was developed, a new reservation system, as we call it. It's resulted in an equal and complex system by which reservations were established, tribes were quote-unquote recognized by the government, dealt with as tribes, and then one day administratively not. Sometimes there are records that tell us why that stopped. Sometimes there are not records that tell us why that stopped. To end that, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which is the primary government agency responsible for dealing with native tribes, established the federal acknowledgement process, which are a series of 7 criteria that a tribe or a petitioner tribe must meet to be granted federal recognition and establish the federal trust responsibility between the tribe and the federal government. That process has been updated, but it places an unfair burden on tribes, on those petitioning for federal recognition, because it requires that the petitioner demonstrate that it has operated as a sovereign nation, as a governmental agency since 1900. Now remember, these rules were promulgated in 1978. The rules ask that petitioning tribes demonstrate something that they never knew they were going to have to demonstrate. They have to show that they were also continuously recognized throughout that entire period by other agencies, by the government, by the communities they exist in, as a governmental agency, as a sovereign nation, as a community. Once again, that goes backwards. If you don't know you're going to have to prove something, you're not maintaining, you have no reason to live up to or keep records up to a standard you don't know you have to keep. That process takes a while. Tribes have been known to sit in the federal recognition process for 30 plus years. That is a federal government issue that they have been trying to address. So the federal acknowledgement process is the primary way. The second way is through judicial action, of being able to demonstrate that, yes, you have had maintained, as a group, you've maintained some form of relationship with the federal government through the entirety of your existence, and that the government does actually recognize you, they just have not put you on the federal acknowledgement list. Tribes have sued and received that recognition. The third way is congressional action, in which Congress exerts its plenary power over tribes and says, we as Congress recognize that this tribe is a sovereign nation and the federal trust responsibility exists between us. The federal trust responsibility is the legal and moral obligation that the United States has to tribes. It's responsibility to them. It has been tested in court and tested in Congress, and it exists. But it creates, the federal acknowledgement creates a secondary component that often gets left out. In recognizing the federal trust responsibility and the sovereignty of the tribe, it creates a dual citizenship status for the citizens of that tribe. They become recognized citizens of a separate sovereign nation. So as you are citizens of the United States, citizens of the state of California, citizens of the city of San Jose, and citizens of the county of Santa Clara, this type of recognition would add an additional citizenship, a political status that is not racial or ethnic. For a tribe to be recognized, then they would become citizens of their tribe. So there's a lot that goes into this. It's not just about recognizing a tribe and the sovereign status of a tribe. It's also recognizing the inherent political status of the individual. Now, that's the three basic ways. There are other ways for federal recognition to occur. One is an administrative appeal of the initial list of federally recognized entities. That is less common, but mostly once the federal process of federal acknowledgement has been exhausted, it falls to Congress to act. So that's the high overview, so I can try to answer questions and see where we can go with this.
Great. Does that conclude the staff presentation?
Yes, Mayor, that concludes the staff presentation.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn to public comment. Each person who submitted a comment card, which you can still do at either of the boxes here down at the base of the auditorium seating. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak, and then we'll come to the council. Council members, of course, can call on folks if they have questions for members of the audience. Tony, go ahead. And or our speakers in the box, of course. Sorry, Tony, go ahead.
Abigail Arieno, Karina Arieno, Ezekiel Dominguez, Jennifer Torres, and Yiana Lopez. Please come on down. You'll get 2 minutes to speak. First person on the microphone, just go. You don't have to speak in the order I called you. Repeat the names again? Yes. Okay. Sorry, I was having a hard time with the handwriting. It's been a week or so. Alil Arieno, A-A-L-I-Y-A-L is the first name. Karina Arieno, Ezekiel Dominguez, Yana Lopez, and Jennifer Torres.
San Jose City Council members, Jorge Tuhi, Ganagragat Karina Ohlone. I'm a tribal member of the Muwekma Ohlone. I'm a mother of 2 indigenous boys. I am a San Jose native born and raised. I'm a part of the Ohlone lineage, and I can trace my genealogy as far back as 1764 to these very lands. Since 1906, my family, my ancestors included, have been waiting for our rights to be restored. Well, we are tired of waiting because it's very clear that there is very little interest in doing what is right for the Muwekma Ohlone people. While I understand that you cannot reinstate our federal recognition, I strongly believe that it is your responsibility to support my people in our efforts. My people were once federally recognized tribe under the Verona ban, and that was taken away from us, just like our land, just like our culture, and our language. Despite the attempt to decimate my people, I am proud to say that my children and I actively contribute to the revitalization of our traditional and sacred dance. We are ghost dancers. My tribe, my family, I should say, holds ceremonies together. We pray together. And more importantly, we support one another. Our existence should have never been questioned or challenged. I stand before you today, and that is only because of the resilience and strength of my ancestors. It is my duty as a living descendant to fight for what is right. I need my relatives put back into the earth where they should have never been disturbed. My people do not deserve to be sitting in boxes anywhere. I will not stop fighting for what is right, and I would hope that the city of San Jose would support the first people of this land, the land you currently utilize, live, and thrive on. I cannot explain how disappointed I am and how the city council has handled this matter. I need justice for my people, and you will see me over and over again until we do, until we get there, until we do what is right. We are the seeds of this land. We are Muwekma. We are not going anywhere.
Thank you. Next speaker. Next speaker.
All right. Just as, and I should have mentioned this at the beginning, I apologize, so that we can keep moving and hear from everyone and everyone's constitutional right here to have their voice heard is protected. We're going to ask people, as we always do, to refrain from cheering or booing or otherwise disrupting the meeting because Tony needs to be able to call the next person up. Thank you for abiding by the rules we have. Thank you. Go ahead, Tony.
Jorge Tuhi, Canakraca, Ezekiel Dominguez, Canahinin Dolores Sanchez. I greet you in my native Chochenyo language. I am a Muwekma Ohlone youth member. I believe my tribe deserves federal recognition not just because I think we need it, but because I think it's fair. It surprises me how throughout all these years, me and my people still do not have federal recognition. It would mean a lot to me and my people if we did gain federal recognition because that would mean all our hard work has paid off. I don't think it's fair that other tribes but Muwekma have gained federal recognition. Our people did not fight to be unknown, they fought to be recognized. My people will not stop fighting until our tribe, the Muwekma Ohlone, gained federal recognition. Most of my family are out attending the Trail of Truth and are also out fighting for federal recognition. Federal recognition is not just something we want, but something my tribe needs. If we do not gain federal recognition, our future generations will be standing where I am. Although I am young and still a child, I do not wish to see my offspring continue to fight for federal recognition, just as my Nana, Geraldine Lopez, who is no longer with us, has stood in this very place to also advocate to previous mayors and councils. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker. I'd also like to call down Louise Bialik. It looks like Jaleesa Torres. And then Alfonso Salazar.
Hi, my name is Yana and I'd like to show you a video.
With the city and the county has taught us all a lot, not the least of which has been to be more sensitive in how we treat those people who came before us. She has worked closely with the agency and the city on seeing that people's whose remains had to be relocated were done so in a very sensitive, proper way. And she has become a friend of mine, a woman that I have admired for a long, long time. And I believe we're real lucky, Rosemary, that you're a member of our community, and we are a member of your community. You came a long time before we did, 10,000 years ago. So it's my honor and privilege to get to introduce to all of you Rosemary Cambra, and thank her for her efforts.
This is a video from 30 years ago in 1994 of San Jose Mayor Susan Hammer introducing Rosemary Cambra, the Muwekma Ohlone former tribal chairwoman.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hodshetuhi City Council members, Kanakraka Alia Aralano. I'm a Muwekma Ohlone tribal member. I'm 17 years old and I'm a senior at Oak Grove High School. I'm a California dancer. I know my language and I know who I am. I hold ceremonies with my family, Maksuyakma. I was born and raised here in San Jose, the city I call home. I want to express my concern for how my people are treated here in my homeland. I have taken many history classes, and do you want to know how humiliating it is that I am forced to learn about Christopher Columbus and his so-called discovery of America? Muwekma Ohlone is treated as if we've been exterminated, as if we are no longer here. While I stand before you, living and breathing, I am living proof of the resilience of my people. Mak Muwekma. We will not go away, and I would like for all of you to consider how damaging and frustrating it is for the way you are treating us. If you all refuse to support us, the first people of the land in which you sit, then that says a lot about how you feel about the community that has already been robbed of our language, our culture, and our spiritual practices. We receive so much support from other nations and communities, but the city of San Jose. If all of you guys decide to vote us down, I am embarrassed. If you all my family deserves justice. My grandfather, Gregory Arellano, passed away June 3rd this year, and throughout his 67 years of life, he did not get to see justice for his people. I will continue my grandfather's legacy and honor him. We are the Ghost Dancers. My family is here to stay, whether you would like to support us or not.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Horsher Truhi, Ganagraga Jalissa Torres, Ganaini Dolores Sanchez. I'm on behalf of my grandmas, Geraldine Lopez, Dolores Sanchez, and Julia Lopez, also for my families who are no longer with us. I greet you in my native Chochenyo language. I'm a Muwekma Ohlone youth member. I grew up here on East Side San Jose and go to school at Oberfeld High School. You guys have given the Muwekma Ohlone another roadblock, and now are requesting a presentation that none of our tribal members or council members were asked to be a part of. Do you guys know that my people died right here where we are standing? My ancestors are right across the street at San Jose State in boxes till today. I feel very hurt that the very people that were voted in positions of power are not using the power to recognize my people. People and ancestors. Imagine having your home taken away from colonizers and having your kids being sent to boarding schools and having your hair being chopped off and being forced to forget your language. Even though this has happened to us, we are still surviving here in San Jose, where we live in poverty. Last but not least, I would like to say prayers to my family, who I haven't seen in months, because they are doing the Trail of Truth, where we are going up to Washington, D.C. to fight for our federal recognition. My family has given a lot up to fight for this war going on. Take time to make change for our future generations. Oh.
Thank you. Next speaker. I'd also like to call down Seat Lamina, Melissa Marquette, and Nicholas.
Hello, Mayor Matt Mahan and council members. I encourage you to watch the YouTube video entitled Muwekma Ohlone Tribe Back from Extinction. The video was made 30 years ago. In the video, there was an intertribal recognition ceremony honoring the tribe, which took place here in San Jose. Mayor Susan Hammer had the honor of introducing Charlie Nijme's mother, Rosemary Canberra, who was the tribe's chairperson at the time. In her introduction, Mayor Hammer stated, "We are real lucky that you are a member of our community, and we are a member of your community. Your tribe came a long time before we did, 10,000 years ago." I'm the artist that painted the mural along the Guadalupe River honoring the tribe. I listened to this video every morning before I went out to paint the mural because it was my daily reminder why it was important that we honor them. Please support the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Yeah, my name is Citlalmina from the Centro Atzlan Chicomostoc, and we study our culture. We're trying to learn about our culture because we have been fighting for who we are for the last 500 years, and so we understand the struggle that the Muwekma Ohlone people are going through. We have to recognize, and you all must recognize, that this is the land of the Muwekma Ohlone people. And, you know, they have gone, we know this history. It happened to us for a very long time. It's very hypocritical to celebrate the 16th of September because that was only 300 years that we were enslaved. We continue to struggle for our liberation as indigenous people. And so we have to learn who we are. And that's, that's precisely what we're doing at the Centro Atzlan. So you have to recognize the stance that the native Muwekma Ohlone people are taking. This is their land. They're buried here. They've been walking these lands. And it's only correct for you to take that position. You cannot be hypocritical about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker. I'd also like to call down Jorge Pacheco Jr., Yisong Kim, and Ellie Camp.
Hello. Okay. My name is Melissa Marquette. I'm a PhD student in planetary science at UC Berkeley. I am definitely not here as a member of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. I am not, my ancestors are not from this continent. But I was born and raised on Muwekma Ohlone ancestral homeland. In the Bay Area, we like to pride ourselves on taking a stand and doing the right thing. We know that there were people living and thriving here prior to statehood for California, prior to arrival of Europeans on this continent. We know that they were here, and we know that they are here today. They're our friends and neighbors. They're members of our community. The least we can do as we live on their ancestral lands is to recognize that they're here. I urge you to do the right thing, take a stand like we love to do in the Bay Area, and support federal recognition for the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, thank you, council members of the city of San Jose. My name is Nicholas, a third-generation San Josean, and I was blessed growing up hearing the stories from my grandmother of her time picking on the orchards in Del Monte Food Cannery. It has sparked my passion for our city's history, and I have my own hard copies of Clyde Arbuckle's History of San Jose and of Dr. C. Winter's first anthropological research of the excavation done on Alameda. I called out of work today where I like to joke that I'm an executive tour guide, but I share stories to potential business owners who wanted to bring their spark out here to San Jose, to children, to schools, and it's a sad footnote that I end off that our city does not recognize our local indigenous tribe. I only ask that for the sake of my grandmother who lived to see more than 100 years living in San Jose, that we do right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Dr. Yesung Kim. I am a Korean American residing and working as a clinical psychologist in the homeland of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. I believe that for all of us who reside on this land, it is important to acknowledge the indigenous community that has lived on and cared for the land for time immemorial. Erasing and ignoring the violent history of this land continues to act as chronic trauma for our indigenous communities and harms all of us. I believe granting the Muwekma Ohlone tribe's request for federal recognition is the bare minimum, but an important step towards justice for the Muwekma tribe. I call for the City Council and all of us living on this land to support the Muwekma's request for federal recognition as an important step towards becoming right with and honoring one another and this land. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Ellie Camp, and I want to express my support for the resolution for federal recognition of the Muwekma Ohlone, whose land we are on. I was raised in San Jose as the child of Taiwanese immigrants and have lived in the South Bay for more than 40 years. It is a grave injustice that the federal recognition of the Muwekma continues to be denied, and disgusting that this recognition continues to be delayed due to questionable political and financial interests. You today have the opportunity to be a part of righting this wrong. It is the bare minimum we can do to honor the first inhabitants of this land. The Muwekma deserve justice.
Thank you. I'd also like to call down Octavio Solaria, Des, Marjorie Siegel, and Alicia Sandoval.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jorge Pacheco Jr., Yutziel Kini Chikin, Bashik Aba Jorge Pacheco Jr. I'm here representing not only my own community of indigenous peoples who are a huge populace in the Bay Area, Maya people, but I'm also here to support the Muwekma Ohlone nation, the Muwekma Ohlone peoples who are telling you that they still exist, who are telling you that they deserve recognition and who deserve recognition. I'm an elected school board member at the Oak Grove School District, and I'm the only male Indigenous elected official in the entire county out of 4. The reason why this misrepresentation happens is because the history that has led us to this point where there's not a single Indigenous tribe in the Bay Area that has federal recognition, that has access to important federal resources, or that even has their histories being taught systematically throughout our classrooms. That's a problem. That's why I dedicated my entire life to fixing that as a Native Studies teacher. And to this day, when I teach about federal recognition to my own kids, while the complicated congressional and legal and judicial narrative is there, the moral one isn't. The moral obligation that we have as elected officials to the people whose land we're still on is crystal clear. It's simple. And that is, if they're telling you that they want recognition and they need your help with that, help them. You can do that by showing this solidarity with this resolution, and there is precedent for Congress overturning BIA decisions. It's not an easy one. It's not a politically easy one to do, but it is the morally just one to do for a population that is severely underrepresented, not only in our classrooms, in our boardrooms, on these councils, but in the community. And so when you see them all here.
Speaker.
Hi, I'm Octavio Solorio. I'm here on behalf of the Muwekma people, not only here, but that are on their campaign across the United States to Washington, D.C. I just want to say that not supporting their sovereignty is erasure and goes against the future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, council people. My name is Des. I am here as an early childhood educator here and as a citizen in so-called San Jose. I am not part of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe, but I am a proud descendant of Indigenous peoples, and I'm here in solidarity to help support them and implore all of you, as I say it as a preschool teacher, to make a good choice today and make a good choice in supporting their federal recognition and give them their people back to them from across the street and in other places like in Berkeley. And the fact that we have to do this here is really patronizing to the people, to our ancestors that have been here way before San Jose started. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. While you make your way to the microphone, I'd like to call Rich, it looks like Maciot, and Lisa Avila. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. My name is Alicia Sandoval. I am a tribal member of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. I'm actually here representing the words of our chairwoman, Charlene Mija. And so I'm going to read because she is, again, on this extraordinary journey of our truth, our trail of truth. And so I'm going to read verbatim what she has asked of us to speak on. So it says, "Thank you for this opportunity to speak the truth about the political erasure of the unrecognized tribe of California. California was one of the most brutal occupiers of the native lands, and although you may think that California Indian Wars are over, I am here to tell you that California Indian Wars never ended. This was against the indigenous population, continues today, and although it's taken on a new, more political form, it is no less violent and no less destructive to our culture, traditions, and community, and it is no less intent on ensuring the eradication of Indian tribes in the San Francisco Bay Area. Before she passed, Senator Feinstein told me she would not support the Muwekma restoration because she didn't want the Indian tribe in San Francisco. Her exact words were she did not want an Indian tribe in her backyard. Governor Newsom refused to acknowledge or include the unrecognized tribes in his apologies for California genocide, and today he refuses to meet Muwekma to discuss creating a process for state recognition of California tribes, a process that 16 states have already implemented. Kamala Harris, as senator, told our previous chairwoman she doesn't want to get involved in Indian affairs. She made it clear she does not care about Indian country. And you are all witness the recent attacks on the legitimacy by Zoe Lofgren and Anna Issue. There are the colonizers who still live among us, and they continue their attempts to take away our sovereignty rights. It's true that history...
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, good afternoon, Mayor and council members. I'm excited to be up here because I represent Muwekma Ohlone tribe. I've been sitting on the council for the tribe for over 25 years. I've been a pastor in a church for 31 years. And also, my grandmother been fighting for recognition, and she passed away at 92. My mother passed away 2 years ago at 91, and I'm fighting now for my family, and I'm 74, and we're going to continue fighting. I got my other children behind me fighting because we deserve justice, and we have to have justice. It's, you know, it's enough. This whole thing that we're talking about is all about finances. And what they're saying is that the senators are saying that they don't want another casino in California. But nevertheless, they already have applications to put, I think it's Grayson Rancheria, put an application in to build a new casino in Vallejo. But yet the whole thing is they said they don't want no more casinos here. So that's kind of like an insult to injury for us. You know, we came today, we were here, what, a couple of weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and they said they didn't want to make a decision, and we will make a decision and come back. Well, we came back, and now we understand there's not going to be a decision. So we came here today to be celebrated, not to be tolerated. And we have to stand, and you have to stand with us because we need justice.
Thank you. Next speaker. I'd also like to call down Maddie Dressler, Dr. Wilcox, and Kay Black.
Good afternoon, San Jose City Council. My name is Lisa Avila, and my father, who has a hard time walking, he is here with me, Arthur Sanchez. We stand before you today as proud members of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. My father is one of our elder members. My father watched his cousin, Rosemary Canberra, lead our tribe's fight for 43 years to get our government to recognize our existence. He was a contractor for many years in San Jose. He saw her fight big developers to prevent the violation of our ancestral burial grounds. He remembers the time she stopped work on a site he was on because he had uncovered burial grounds. We are members of the Muwekma Ohlone. We have preserved our culture, our identity, and our deep connections to this land. And despite your attempts to trying to keep us quiet, we say no more. We have had enough of the political games and the mistreatment. We've had enough of the corruption. A politician's legacy is built by their actions. Many have, mainly how they vote on some issues. Many politicians have a tarnished legacy due to voting in favor of connection, social injustice. Please don't be one of those politicians. Be a politician whose legacy will be written in a positive light, a politician who will be known as a promoter of justice. Do the right thing today and I urge you to vote to bring the resolution to the floor and vote.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, very nice to see you here today. My name is Michael Wilcox. I was hired as an anthropology professor at Stanford University in 2001. But I also lived here. I grew up in the area. I was born in Redwood City. And my father's family are from Quechan Territory, Yuma, Arizona. My grandfather was relocated here after the war. I say this because the entire time I grew up here, I never heard the name of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe, not once. I'm ashamed to say that I'd never heard that there was a tribe here. And I never met anybody until I was hired at Stanford. And I asked the question why, and I've devoted my career to answering that question why. So we know that the tribe has been here, the ancestors of the Muwekma Ohlone, for as long as anybody can know. Archaeologically, they go back 12 to 15,000 years. Most of those sites are beneath the surface of the bay because the presence of the Muwekma Ohlone people predates the formation of the San Francisco Bay. They watch climate change happen in real time. We think about the mission period as being the center of things. The missions are only here for 64 years. That's a tiny period of time when you look at 10 to 20,000 years of known occupation. For comparison, we know that Ireland is only habited about 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. So this is a deep stretch of time. We have court testimony that I've uncovered with some colleagues of mine at History San Jose that talks about resistance from the Muwekma Ohlone people going back to the 1830s, 1840s. And finally, that stopped when the tribe was relocated from Mission Dolores and Mission Santa Clara to the East Bay. The rancheria is called Alisal. It was purchased by Phoebe Hearst, and in an act of irony, the tribe was declared extinct by Kroeber. And I'm here to recommend to remedy that situation as an anthropologist. And I ask you to recognize the presence of this group of people.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Maddie Dressler. Today I stand before you to express my unwavering support of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe's pursuit of federal recognition. The Muwekma Ohlone, the original stewards of the Bay Area, have a rich history steeped in culture, resilience, and connection to the land that has persisted for thousands of years. To deny us federal recognition is to overlook not only our historical significance, but also our ongoing contributions to the preservation of our cultural heritage. Federal recognition is essential for the Muwekma Ohlone tribe to protect our people, protect our identity, and to access essential resources that will help lift our community up. It is an important step toward rectifying historical injustices and offering an opportunity for our tribe to thrive in a modern context. Recognizing the Muwekma Ohlone means acknowledging our history, empowering us to contribute even more significantly to our region. We all benefit from a diverse tapestry of cultures and voices. Supporting the federal recognition of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe is a commitment to justice, equity, and respect for Indigenous voices. Today we ask you to honor our past and help us pave the way for our future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker. I'd also like to call Raymond Ortiz, Marisol Diaz, and Liliana Miranda.
Thank you. Thank you, council members, for the opportunity to speak today in support of the City of San Jose's resolution on federal recognition for the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. My name is Caitlin Black. I'm a Bay Area resident, born and raised on Muwekma Ohlone land. I'm a graduate of Santa Clara University and a former employee of Stanford University, both of which are institutions who have committed ethnic cleansing and genocide of the Muwekma Ohlone people on their native land. The eradication and erasure of the Muwekma Ohlone people continues today, and therefore their sovereign rights to this land must be recognized. I implore the City Council to pass this resolution calling on Congress to recognize the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. Federal recognition is one small step, but a significant one to begin the land back process and to begin the healing of generational trauma inflicted on the Muwekma Ohlone people by the local, state, and federal governments of the United States. As a community member, I strongly believe it is in the best interest of the City of San Jose to build trust and partnership with the Muwekma Ohlone tribe and all Indigenous people in our community by passing this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Raymond Luna Ortiz, born and raised in San Jose. I'd just like the council to acknowledge how old San Jose is and all the different violent hardships and fighting the Muwekma have had to deal with in between from multiple invaders till this day. So take that into consideration when making this long overdue decision for recognition. I grew up on East Side San Jose. I went to Linda Vista, Joseph George, James Lick. I love this city. I want to continue to love this city. I lived here my whole life, and I would like to see my city make the right decision. And I hope the next time we come back here, we don't have to keep coming back here. It's very patronizing. It's very, to be quite frank, it's disrespectful. And you have a doctor right here that can provide you with anything that you need to know. And he even asked if he had any questions, and no one spoke up. So, you know, please make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hoshatuhi Kanak Liliana. Good evening, council members. My name is Liliana Miranda, and I am 11 years old. I'm a member of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. I ask for your help with providing a resolution for my people. Passing this resolution will be a big impact to my future and future generations. I have found my way dancing in ceremonies with my tribe, making my own regalia and speaking our language that was taken away from us. We are putting in the work and being a tribe so people consider passing this resolution. We are not all dead. We are still standing on our land today. Thank you for your time and consideration. Kish Hoshe Ekana. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Marisol Diaz, and I'm an Indigenous woman born and raised here in San Jose in Muwekma Ohlone territory. I'm here to support my sister, Chairwoman Charlene Nishme, and my Muwekma relatives, and all the Indigenous people here in this city. I was invited to join the Trail of Truth. I just got back from South Dakota. I spent 10 days at the Pine Ridge Reservation, where we were invited by the White Plume and the Camp family. It was an honor, and I was very lucky to be able to spend one-on-one time with Lexi, Alex White Plume, Lexi, Percy White Plume, and Taween Ramona White Plume. And I just want to actually address my relatives here and remind you that we are supported as Indigenous people. They reminded me of what it means to be Oyate, which is in their Lakota language of the Oglala Lakota Nation. And we are one. We are one, and we are here. We're not going anywhere. We'll be back. And just know that all American tribes, many American tribes across the nation are standing with you. They send their love, they send their prayers, and we'll see you in DC on Indigenous Peoples Days. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Before you come up, I'd like to call Caitlin Torres, Louis Sher. My microphone keeps turning off. Maybe if I hold the button, it'll work. Louis Shiramonte Jr., Sean Shrum, and Mimi S.
Oshituhi Kanakraka, Caitlin Torres. I'm not really a person to really come up here and speak, whether it's political, whether it's in front of anyone. But I actually watched the video of the last time we came, and one thing that really caught my eye is that I look at all you, and all you guys are all looking at your computers, looking at your phones, and not showing any remorse. Especially that my youth, or the youth, are coming up here to speak upon, trauma. It's trauma for them because they have their own family that is not here for months because they have to do a trail, because they came to you guys for support and we don't have your support. And something that I do like to recognize is that we had a first time after 20 years, we did a youth camp at Santa Clara University. And one thing that definitely stood to me was the fact that there's a house that has more than 5,000 of our ancestors under there, and nothing is being happened. And the fact that you all are definitely learning and definitely reviewing everyone speaking and reviewing your history on whatever you would love to look at and whatever you want to put your potential on looking at, I definitely feel that there's stuff that you are not focusing on and not showing no remorse. You guys are really only focusing on politics and gaming. And if gaming really is the problem, it really shouldn't be. Something that is what I would hope to happen in the next, hopefully, year after going to DC in the next months, was that we have an actual land and a space to pray, a space to dance, a space to, be in that type of prayer. For me, it doesn't have to deal with gaming. It doesn't have to deal with politics. For me, it's prayer and dancing as a ghost dancer and dancing for my grandma, Geraldine Lopez, who was here and definitely spoke to one of you, and definitely I know a lot of my...
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Sean Shrum. If any of you with your vast experience and lengthy education have any knowledge of anywhere in the country where land is being given back or land is being given, gaming licenses, tell me any place across the country where the government is working hand over fist to help out Native people in a very progressive way. I understand that there's been some interference from some local politicians. They are not the experts on the Ohlone people. Those experts are in this room, have been here often, and will return. They're here fighting for their name. They're here fighting for their recognition. The last time I was in Louisiana, I went to the Whitney Plantation, and it's a reconstruction of a Creole indigo plantation. And when I got to those weathered wooden shacks, I kept hearing my friend's mother tell me the story of when she and her mother were interned in camps in the United States during World War II. And it was the treatment of her mother that she was always the most upset about, the disrespect. They told her she wasn't who she was. They told her, "You're not an American. You're an enemy alien, Sign some paperwork or we'll send you someplace worse." We're here today to fight racism. My contemporaries, we have lived with the survivors of the Holocaust. We have lived with survivors of internment camps. We have lived with survivors of all kinds of maltreatment. You have a choice today. Your country needs you now more than ever to fight racism.
My name's Louis Shermonte, Jr. I was born in San Jose. My family's lived here for 120 years. We have the oldest business in the city that's family-owned. I'm not a member of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. I am Assembly District Delegate within the California Democratic Party, as well as a member of South Bay Indigenous Solidarity, which supports the concept of a resolution being passed in regard to the Muwekma Ohlone restoration of federal recognition. The Muwekma Ohlone tribe has basically resided in this region beyond historic records, and I do want to remind the Council that the Democratic Party of Santa Clara County, Santa Cruz County, San Francisco, Contra Costa County, and San Mateo County have passed resolutions supporting the tribe in this effort. The delisting of the tribe from the Federal Register is basically an example of cultural erasure and technically genocide, because it had the intent of destroying a people. It wasn't based on any solid evidence. The delisting, and experts at the time argued against the delisting. Please consider actually passing a resolution on this issue. Thank you.
Wendy G., Carla Torres, and Louise Bialik.
May I? Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Mahan and City Council members. My name is Mimi Spreadbury. I'm a settler colonizer. I live in San Jose District 4. I have lived in San Jose for 20 years. I'm also a member of South Bay Indigenous Solidarity. I have been working in human rights, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and conservation for over 10 years. I've probably spoken to you about other of those issues. I'm here today to support our neighbors, the Muwekma Ohlone tribe, who are documented to have been in this area for millennia. To further diversity, equity, and inclusion goals of the city, San Jose needs to please pass this resolution supporting federal recognition of the Muwekma Ohlone tribes to start the mutual healing process. Federal recognition would allow the tribe to hold land in trust, allow tribal members to access federal programs and services, among other fundamental rights. Please show solidarity and vote yes on this resolution to support federal recognition of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. Thank you for your time, and thank you for accepting public comments.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Greetings, Mayor Mahan and City Council members. My name is Wendy Greenfield, and I'm representing the South Bay chapter of Jewish Voice for Peace, a peace and human rights organization based in the South Bay since 1997. We urge the City Council to pass a resolution supporting the Muwekma Ohlone tribe in their efforts to achieve federal tribal recognition. The Muwekma Ohlone story is a clear injustice. Historically, their tribe was recognized as the Verona Band of Alameda County, and at no point did Congress terminate this recognition. The consequences of the lack of recognition are dire. The Muwekma Ohlone lack access to crucial federal programs and services designed to help indigenous communities, such as educational assistance, health care services through the Indian Health Service, and support for tribal housing. Moreover, the tribe is barred from taking land into trust to build housing, exacerbating the pressure of gentrification and threatening to displace their people from their 12,000-year homeland. All current members of the tribe are direct descendants of the federally recognized Verona Band, and despite genomic studies linking the Muwekma Ohlone to this land, institutions like UC Berkeley continue to store tens of thousands of their ancestors and artifacts in their basements, depriving the tribe of the dignity of properly laying their ancestors to rest. Denial of their tribal status is denial of their human rights. Jewish Voice for Peace South Bay urges the city of San Jose to support the Muwekma Ohlone's fight for federal recognition, reparation, and autonomy. As tribal members ride on horseback to present their case in Washington, join the path towards justice. To quote Deuteronomy, "Justice, justice, you must pursue." Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. I'd also like to note that I have one anonymous card, and I have now called every name on every. You can go ahead to the microphone. I've called every card So if you did not hear your name, you can come on down.
Good afternoon. My name is Carla Torres. I'm with La Raza Roundtable and also representing Native Voice. And we want to make sure that you all know that we support the Muwekma Ohlone people and the resolution. But I also want to say thank you for recognizing today the Mexican Independence Day and our people. I think it's important. But I also think when we do that, we can't just stand back and not also help and support our relatives, right? Our Ohlone, our indigenous people. Being an indigenous person myself, as when we see injustice to one group, we have to stand up and help because that's an injustice to all of us. I don't know how much power and authority you all have. I don't have the history of the resolution. I wasn't going to speak, but I felt compelled to come and support, the Ohlone people. But I will say this, if you're not able to pass the resolution as is for whatever reason, could you at least reconsider and meet with the people and find out what the middle ground can be? Maybe there's some things that we don't know, there's some barriers that you have that maybe the people don't know, but maybe meet with them at minimum and let them know what the barriers are and see if there's some way that we can come to some middle ground or some help. And I think lastly, I want to say if the city council is not able to do that, to the young people, you're brave, you're awesome, and run for city council. Then you can make the changes you need. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Jose Roman. I'm an immigrant from Peru and living here more half of my life. And I've been the subject of discrimination the whole time since I've been living here. So I live in a housing for 10 years, but we got a manager. Her name is Marisol Guignac. And I want to make a complaint about her for the not equal treatment. So it says that it's considered discrimination and it's prohibited by the Fair Housing Act. So I'm the only target of breaking the rules when other people do break the rules. So where is the equality? I mean, I feel discriminated and also feel like they're not treating me right. So please, if we can do something about it, assign someone in power that can deliver it fairly for everybody, not just being discriminated is like the worst thing that can happen to anybody. So I think that's why we've seen a lot of people in the streets because nobody cares and there's no love. So sorry about the emotions, but I mean, I can say a lot, but you guys gave me 2 minutes, so thank you for your time.
Thank you, and I'm sorry you've had this experience. Sounds like you're talking on a different item than the recognition of the Muwekma Ohlone. We may be able to get you some, maybe Stephen on my team can connect you with our housing department, has some resources for tenants' rights. There may be some things we can point you to. But
Okay,
thank
thank
you
you
for being here.
Yep.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Louise Bialik, and I'm from Los Angeles. I flew out here to talk to you. I am a former alum of UCLA, or I'm an alum of UCLA. And on May 1st, I was on campus and noticed there was a January 6th event that happened, which shocked me. And I didn't see how this could happen because, what UC Regent could allow this to happen. And I did some research and I found out that it was my former professor who was dismissed for being a fraud and pretendian at UCLA in 1999. And when I learned that he became chair of Grayton Rancheria and has drummed up a campaign to prevent the voices of the Muwekma from being federally recognized, it motivated me to come here and talk to you and ask you the question, at what point does generational systemic trauma of Indigenous Americans expire for a sovereign existing people who have naturally resided in the Bay Area for 10,000 years? Maybe it's because the Muwekma homeland has been hostily overtaken by government, which parcels Aboriginal land to high-paying stakeholders. Like, for instance, do you know that Google gave Zoe Lofgren $66,000 this year and $87,000 in 2022? I don't know what she got in 2023. But Great and Rancheria has gone all up and down California and all over DC to give $32,000 to Gavin Newsom and $4 million to the Democrat Party in DC. And in turn, he was granted a seat as a UC regent.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. I'm here to advocate passing the resolution. And even though I'm not Muwekma Ohlone, nor am I Native American, I'm here because it's the right thing to do. The Muwekma Ohlone people have suffered through centuries of racial oppression and trauma, and they deserve federal recognition. As elected officials, the City Council has a duty to represent the will and the values of the people. Delaying the vote from one meeting to the next will not make us go away, and we will not give up until the resolution is passed. The time is now to do the right thing, so please do the right thing and support the Muwekma Ohlone. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one last card.
Good late afternoon, City Council. My name is Richard. I'm a scholar of the University of Southern California, where I received my graduate degree, and the number one thing that they taught me there in leadership was your intent. And as a college professor for the past 10 years in the Bay Area, my intent is always on behalf of the students and the well-being of individuals. So I'm just hoping you guys give Muwekma their justice. The thing that hurts me a lot is I try to get Muwekma involved in our activities at the colleges, and a lot of them don't have the funding to come to college, and they don't apply for the scholarships for Native Americans because they're not federally recognized. It's a lot of these little specifics that are hurting the tribe and the youth from prospering. I submitted to the city clerk documents supporting from the professors at Stanford and world-renowned researchers from around the world that have linked the DNA genomes of the Muwekma tribe to being here for thousands of years. So I'm just wondering how that could be overlooked. And I know it's got to be political because if you have proof from world-renowned researchers linking the ancestor history, and then we get, 30 years ago, Muwekma is honored from the mayor, and then they take it away. That's a severe injustice. I'm just trying to understand what this is really all about. Also, if you read the thousands of pages regarding federal recognition, like this doctor says over here, it's severely flawed. Because if you look into it, they say there's these rules, but then also at the same time, they make exceptions for tribes that they benefit from. So it's like, ask the questions, just do the right thing. When you go home and speak to your members, be happy.
Thank you. All speaker cards have been called, so I'm going back to council.
Great. Thank you, Tony. And thank you all for taking the time to be here and testify here at public comment. We appreciate hearing everyone's opinion. So now we've heard the staff presentation, had an opportunity to hear from members of the community. Now we come back to the council, which is an opportunity for council members to ask questions, engage in dialogue. I'll just remind folks of what Zulma said at the beginning. This is an informational item today, and I'm gonna, we'll come around the dais here, but I'm gonna start off with Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it, and I want to thank all members of the tribe and advocates here in the room. We're going to, one moment, we're going to bring you up, for being here to advocate for the recognition of the Muwekma. In a few minutes, I'm going to bring up Tribal Council Member Richard. Actually, you could come down if you'd like. I just want to mention that our Brown Act was under the impression that the specialist here, and I want to thank you for being here. Thank you, sir. Was going to talk about the whole picture of federal recognition, not just like the nuts and bolts of like what the legal language would be, but how it's been controversial, how the government has weaponized it against unrecognized tribes, how other tribes come in and politicize it because they don't want competition in the gaming industry. That's what I thought the presentation was going to be like, but unfortunately, I don't know if you were told, sir, but unfortunately not. And I thought, and our Brown Act was also under the influence that we were going to hear about the history of the Muwekma, but I got to say that I'm actually kind of disappointed in what we heard here today. So, and that's nothing against you, sir, because you were only told, what you were told, but I was under the influence, and we were going to get the whole entire picture, and I just want to make that statement heard, because I told the tribe we were going to hear that. But I just wanted to invite a representative from the tribe to please come up. They told me that, unfortunately, we couldn't give you warranted time, but I wanted to give you time out of my own questions to please mention a statement from the tribe.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I will continue with the words from our chairwoman, Charlene. So it's true that history has never been kind to our people. White settlers were never kind to our people, and the city of San Jose was not kind to my people. The Pueblos of San Jose was chosen to be the first capital of California. This city we call San Jose was the birthplace of the war of extermination against my people. San Jose, under Governor Peter Burnett, sanctioned the enslavement and murder of California Indians. Now, I know that you council members believe that those days are long gone and that it's an ancient history, and you likely believe that you bear no responsibility for the genocide of the Ohlone people. And I would agree with you that you were not to blame for the previous administration policies of extermination. But when you ran for elected office, you probably told us in the community how you would do better than the past administration, how you would bring change, maybe you promised hope, or a new vision of community, a community that thrived for equality and inclusion, a community rooted in social justice. Well, today is your day to show who you are. Show us how you can do better. Show us all that the truth matters more than the political gain. Or you can simply look the other way while the corruption continues to poison our hopes for a better, more justice. But this time, the whole city will bear witness. Today was supposed to be the day that the San Jose City Council brought our resolution of support to the full council for a floor vote. But because of Zoe Lofgren behind-the-scenes effort to squash this resolution, we are here today protesting rather than celebrating. Make no mistake, gaming tribes that have bought the Democratic Party, and they have their foot firmly on the necks of the wrongly unrecognized tribes of California. The casino tribes are spending millions bankrolling the Democratic Party to ensure our political erasure for nothing more than greed. That's why the two of California's most powerful Democrats, Zoe Lofgren and Anna Eshoo, are both opposed to our reaffirmation. That's why Governor Newsom takes money from the Grayton Rancheria and then authorizes an expansion of their casino, and that's why Kamala Harris has ignored Muwekma, even though she spent her entire career on our homeland. Lofgren and Eshoo admits that we deserve recognition, and they even offered legislation to affirm our status, but they demanded that first we need to sign away the rights and freedoms of our children to pursue gaming in the future. Zoe Lofgren and Anna Eshoo outright lied, and betrayal of the Muwekma Ohlone people will forever stain our legacy, just as Peter Burnett will forever be remembered as the butcher of California Indians. So too will these California politicians be remembered as the corruption puppets of special events. Whatever reports the city staffers present to you today, I hope it will be based on the 4 decades of vigorous academic research done on our tribe by experts at the highest level of academic, instead of relying on lawyers, lobbyists, and politicians to tell them what to present. I have already responded in writing to the concerns of this council and have supplied every one of you with infutable proof, backed by documents, backed by real evidence of our sovereignty and continued existence. And you all aware that in 2022, a federal district court held that Muwekma is entitled to sovereignty immunity, protecting federal recognized tribes. The court found that Muwekma satisfied the test of tribal status. To be clear, crystal clear, the sovereign immunity comes from being sovereign. In closing, I want to make a point that all people have a breaking point, a point where they can stand no more. No more corruption, no more injustice. We Muwekma are at that breaking point. Our children are being gentrified out of our 10,000-year homeland. Our ancestors sit in boxes and can't be repatriated, and our members are denied access to eagle feathers for our ceremonial practices. And to add insult to injury, California politicians oppose us because they claim they don't want any more casinos in California. But Granton Rancheria is expanding their casino, and Scotts Valley is quietly proposing a new casino in Vallejo in our homeland. Zoe Lofgren and Anna Ishu are silent on these casino projects because these tribes donate heavy to the Democratic Party. In the end, it's open.
Thank you.
Council, excuse me, this is the council member's time. If he has any other questions, I think we are close to 10 minutes, but if you want to ask a question, or we can come back around to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I thought we were going to get a little bit of history of the Muwekma tribe, but I also appreciate your statements as well. I'm the one who authored this memo in partnership with Deb Davis. I'm the one who, Councilmember Deb Davis, I'm the one who prioritized this discussion. Unfortunately, I'm only one council member, and we need 6 council members to pass a resolution. And, we read the writing on the wall, and we want to make sure that this conversation continues. That's why we made this an informational item instead of it just dying today due to lack of support. But I want to thank my colleagues in our Brown Act for this item. And while I know the council is not prepared today to take a vote on this resolution, I'm hoping that we can revisit this discussion in the future. The Muwekma Ohlone have suffered long and historic injustices, and the lack of federal recognition has cut them off from the federal programs that are supposed to address those harms. And what the Muwekma are asking for goes beyond any electoral politics. They are simply asking to be granted the same rights and sovereignty as all Native Americans in the United States. To not do this is to maintain the status quo of erasure of our First Nations and Indigenous people. But I'm also hoping that this discussion can be part of a more robust conversation about how the city can be a partner to the Muwekma as we both work to empower one another and address the common challenges we face. But I just want the members of the tribe know that we're not giving up. We're just going to take some time to prepare another approach. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Council Member. We're going to go over to Councilmember Batra next.
Okay. Thank you very much for those comments from all the Indigenous people and the others who came and spoke today. I was also, like Councilmember Ortiz, I was expecting to learn about those 3 items which would help prepare the council to be able to vote in a proper manner. And I'm going to ask just a couple of questions so that I get some clarification. If we do pass the resolution, I'm not sure if I picked up, what happens next?
If you pass the resolution?
Yeah.
You pass the resolution.
Not today, but let's say if we do pass this, if this was a resolution to pass, and we do pass it, what happens next? I'm trying to see is, where does it lead us? What does it achieve for the community we are trying to help?
Is that on there? If you pass the resolution, what you're doing is making a statement of where the city stands. Does that have an impact on the federal process? The best answer I can give you is maybe. And I say that because the administrative process, as I have read it in the Federal Register, has closed the avenue of the federal acknowledgement component, which may not remain closed. And I'll explain that here, is that as we are sitting here, there are consultations going on with the Bureau of Indian Affairs and only federally recognized tribes to provide a secondary appeal process with additional information. Because the reliance of the documentation of continual Indian community, continued government from 1900 hasn't been met. That's the question. The resolution doesn't do a lot to support that. What the resolution does do is it states where you as a city stand. It sends a message and adds support to any potential congressional legislation. And I will, as I've said many times when I've been asked about this, I say, you know, those are political questions that you as a council will have to answer. So,
okay. So thank you very much for that. What I'm trying to see is the amount of energy and time which is being spent by the community which is affected by this thing. Are we really giving them a commensurate reward by doing, if we could pass the resolution, which is all the thing we can do, are we really giving them in return what they're really looking for and what will help them to get where they need to get to?
I'm not able to answer if you're going to give Muwekma what they're looking for. They're right here.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
but
fine.
I can tell you this.
That's okay.
No.
I'll
But
ask. Okay.
let me share this with you.
Yeah.
There are examples here in California. Specifically, we're going to pick out Eureka, California, which is about 5.5 hours north of here on 101. What the city of Eureka did was recognize their role in the attempted extermination of the Wiyot people. And in such, transferred back to the Wiyot, the city-owned property that held their center of the world and the place of their creation. So if you're asking an outsider what it is that the city can do, is the city can begin to look at other options that restore the land base that was taken, and look for avenues in which it can partner with Muwekma to have the ancestors returned, which is extremely complicated and governed by an entirely set of different laws.
Okay, thank you for that. Got one other question. Has there been ever an example of a city being able to help through its resolutions and all that, where the BIA has denied it, appeal has denied it, and 20 years of effort has not gotten anywhere? Has there been another place, another tribe, which has been able to get that kind of a recognition?
There are examples of that. We can get to very specifics. I can send you some of those, but usually that happens when there is a change in elected officials. And that's, if you look about the example, that what is out there, it's usually that there is a change in the makeup of the United States Congress. There's a change in the makeup of the local municipality political makeup. So it's not just dependent on the city doing it. There's another component to this that you have to be aware of, and once again, that is a political decision.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving those clarifications, and I thank every one of you who has come here today and given us a piece of information which hopefully will help us get you what you're looking for. Thank you.
Okay, just before I turn to Councilor Torres, I just want to clarify that last question. So my briefing materials say that Congress has never granted federal recognition to a tribe that was denied by BIA and had all appeals exhausted. Is that not true? I thought I just heard you say something different, but that's what my briefing doc says.
Congress has, in very limited instances, overruled the BIA.
After all appeals have been exhausted, like this case?
Or as they're right at the edge of all appeals being exhausted. Yeah, I've read Congressman Esha's letter and Congressman Lofgren's letter. I disagree with what they have said, because there have been instances where both the congressional and appellate process have been simultaneous, and the appeals have ended and then Congress passed. But it's highly, highly unusual. It's highly unusual for it to happen.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that point of fact, but that's helpful. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to turn to Councilmember Torres.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Ortiz, for bringing this to the body. I'm very disappointed that it's also an informational item. As somebody who knows our Muwekma Ohlone tribe really well and has friends and family in the Muwekma Ohlone tribe, I would love to vote for it as your city council member, as your representative. But unfortunately, we're not able to do that today, as Councilmember Ortiz just stated. Unfortunately, this is an informational item, so we can't motion to pass this memo, unfortunately, and I would love to. What I do want to say is I think it's important to gain support amongst my council colleagues, and today's presentation did not help at all. Today's presentation should have been a little bit better organized. I'm a visual person. I think it's an injustice that we didn't have a PowerPoint presentation or that somebody from our own city staff didn't do the presentation. So I'm really disappointed in today's presentation. So I hope, Zulma, we can come better prepared next time around, because it is an injustice to our Muwekma Ohlone community. It's just only me. I'm more of a visual person, so I hope that we can have better presentations when it comes to explaining what's here at hand. I do have 2 questions. I know,
Councilmember,
Yeah.
if I may,
Yes.
because I think it's important to provide the appropriate context. At the August 7th Rules Committee meeting, staff was directed to do exactly what we did today. So if there's a different expectation, then we would be more than welcome to receive that direction. But I just want to be clear, because I think it's important that we kind of set the record straight about that. On August 7th, at the Rules Committee meeting, we were asked to provide the background on the federal recognition, and that this was just going to be an informational memo. I actually covered that Rules Committee meeting for Assistant City Manager Lee Wilcox, and I asked a clarifying question. So is this just going to be informational? And the answer was yes. And so I just want to clarify that for the record.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm sure, I'm not in the Brown Act, so I'm sure Councilmember Ortiz and folks on the Brown Act will have that conversation offline. But again, these are my recommendations, my opinions, right, my concerns, and I'm sure it's the concerns of our Muwekma Ohlone tribe folks too. So I do have a question. I know that Councilmember Ortiz mentioned it, but who can answer why? Because it's an informational item, why can't we motion to support this resolution?
I think that's a question for Nora.
Thank you, Council Member. It's not noticed for action, and it would have to be noticed for action so that the public would know that there's potential action today. That's why. Can be brought back, something else, but there's not a vote today.
Okay, so
and that again was a decision of the Rules Committee a couple of weeks ago. I forget.
So it has to go back to rules so we can take action. Okay. The other question is and I hope that they could answer it, is because I only could keep up with what's happening here on the dais or concerns here in the city of San Jose. Is there a federal bill, or a state bill that an elected official on that body is championing to recognize the Muwekma Ohlone tribe, a federal or state bill?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So we don't know if there's a federal or state bill.
If there were to be a federal bill, it would come from the Congress has always acquiesced to the local congressional representatives. So if there were a bill coming at the federal level, it would come from the local congressional representatives, and I don't believe they have anything in the works.
Okay.
At the state level, there is no process in California to recognize state tribes by the state. We don't have that process, which is an anomaly for a state that has this many federally and non-federally recognized tribes.
Okay. So I know we have congressional representatives who are at odds with our Ohlone Muwekma. So if there is a bill, such bill that someone authors, I'm asking because on this body, our IRG folks come and ask us bills to support, and so maybe that's a way for us to go through, maybe going through our IRG group or department or whatever it's called, to support, for our city to support the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. So obviously there isn't, so I guess we can't go that route, unfortunately. But you know, I stress to my colleagues, you heard the plight of our Muwekma Ohlone community. It's very sad that they are being erased. It's very sad that you know, they've been wiped out. It's very sad that they don't have federal recognition, and I hope that we as a city can come together and recognize and let our Muwekma Ohlone folks know that our city should be supporting them in their fight to get federally recognized. So thank you. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember. We'll go to Councilmember Foley.
Thank you. First, I want to thank all of the members of the public and members of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe who are here to speak on your behalf and to share with me and my colleagues your plight, your pain, and your concerns and how you'd like us to help. I am not unsympathetic to what you had to say. I listened to every one of you who came forward, and I truly appreciate you taking the time to being here. I always approach these things, too, as open-minded and really don't come in here with any preconceived notions on how I wish to proceed. So thank you first and foremost and for being here, and I honor your presence and your willingness to come forward and share with us. To Dr. Malloy, I did have some questions for you, and your statements, I found your presentation informative because you made it clear that there are three ways that they could achieve the Muwekma could achieve federal recognition, not ignition, recognition, and that the federal recognition process through the BIA has 7 points. We've been told that they were denied their application based on 3 points. I have yet to hear what those 3 points are. Is one the trigger of 1900 and being able to track their existence since 1900?
The 3 points are, I'm going to work from memory here, is the demonstration of continuous authority over the membership. So basically, you're recording this meeting. You're keeping minutes of this meeting. You have a record of everything you've done. That's the component.
Okay.
The other thing is, were they recognized by other entities? What strikes me as interesting is the historical record of cities, and the county may have all of that in its minutes. But I don't know if the cities or counties were brought into looking at that. There may have been interaction. Those are the components. Now, like I said, is if you don't know you have to keep these records, if these aren't things that you're used to doing, it doesn't, tribal governments didn't keep minutes. That's a Western concept. That's a Western thing prior to contact. And a lot of tribes continue to operate on an oral basis. So we're asking tribes to conform to a Western concept of government that isn't how they've always operated.
Which seems contrary to how the Muwekma and indigenous people have operated. They word of mouth and passing on their stories person to person is historically how they've documented their existence. So I'm not sure I could document my existence or my histories, the history of my family's existence back to Western Europe without doing a lot of records, but it wouldn't show that I lived here or had any access to land or property or heritage in this area. So I think that's an arbitrary date, and that's what I got from your information. You think it's an arbitrary date too.
I do believe it's an arbitrary date, but it's the date we're working with, and I'm, you live with what you've got.
I understand that. So you gave us 2 points, the authority stating that they've been in existence since 1900, and the other is the recognition by other. What's the third one? Or did I miss it?
I don't believe I told you because I think I've got to go back and look it up, but we can pull the Federal Register document that has that listed, and that's right there. The pieces that the Bureau is claiming are not there are not because the Muwekma have not continued to exist as a government. That is evident. Muwekma Ohlone is recognized by all federally recognized tribes in California and all other non-recognized tribes in California as a tribe, as a sovereign government. So the question here, what we're really negotiating here is the federal component of this. And I think that's one of the things that comes into the federal recognition process is they don't really speak to the fact that the recognition from other tribes actually counts. And that's a detriment of the regulations.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. One other thing that I had hoped to get from your presentation was how would, if this resolution, we're not voting on a resolution today, but if we were to bring it back or in whatever form, what would that effect be on other tribes within San Jose or within Santa Clara County?
It would have more of an indirect effect than a direct effect. And it would open the door to other tribes coming and requesting that. Where I would see a flaw in the proposed resolution that you were considering is that one of the sticking points that generally will cause a federally recognized tribe to oppose recognition is the way in which territorial boundaries are delineated. Particularly here, they seem to be very looking at how each of the different groups have laid out their tribal claims to the territory. It's very clear that they don't overlap in many instances, but I think that would be an area that could provide more support, is saying pull in what the Muwekma Ohlone recognizes their territory, and that way when future resolutions come before you or future requests, you have a way of ensuring that you're not crossing over or causing conflict or adding to conflict or creating a situation that you don't want to be in.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. I appreciate that. That's it for me, Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Council Member. Vice Mayor Kameh.
Thank you. I too want to thank everyone for coming. I know that you take time out of your busy day to share your thoughts and your feelings and your history with us, so thank you for that. I had a question just following up on Councilmember Foley. I'm just wondering, the example that you gave from Eureka in terms of what they gave back to the tribe, was that territory, or because I think that what you just said in terms of delineation of where is their sovereign nation makes sense to me. So that would sort of entail, okay, trying to figure out, okay, where do they establish themselves, or what is their territory? So I'm just curious, is that what happened there in Eureka, or I'm just wondering what they gave them that helped them, because in all of this is extremely, what I found from your information is that it's extremely complicated because there's so many layers, right? And as a city, we can only go so far. And the pathways to success is, I mean, they've gone through federal acknowledgement process, they can go through judicial action process, and now the door that maybe would be the congressional action process, right? And to demonstrate it as a sovereign nation. So I'm just curious in terms of pathways to getting to kind of what Councilmember Batra was talking about in terms of, what they want is acknowledgement, right? So well, I'm asking the gentleman here.
Let's move to the Eureka example. So what Eureka actually did was gave parcels of land. So the Wiyot Center of the World is a small island in the middle of Humboldt Bay, on which there was a massacre in 1863. That land was, over time, came into the hands of the city and controlled by the city. And over 127-year process of movement, the city decided to return all of that land back to the tribe. So it was actual land. I'm trying to figure out how to answer the next point you made, is that the door that's open now is the congressional door.
Yeah.
And that door is controlled by the members of Congress. Right. So
that is really the issue, whether or not there's a member of Congress who'd be willing to bring this forward.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Ortiz, I'm sorry, Councilmember Jimenez, your name disappeared. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was pushing. The more and more I'm listening to this, it seems to me it's more a political issue. And I'm not sure the city of San Jose is a proper forum, although I appreciate the interest in recognition and all that. I think it's very important. And I share the sentiments that have been expressed by my colleagues about the Native people and things that have happened to them over the years in this country, and the unfortunate sort of way they've been treated by this particular government or the United States government. The question I have, and to the extent you're able to answer it, can you speak a little bit about the legitimacy of the BIA and how, I mean, it's a body that was created a long time ago, and I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that. And before you answer, I would say that I also found your information interesting, informative, and helped me to better understand sort of the dynamics and the sort of potential path forward, if you will. But if you can chat about that or talk about that, that'd be helpful.
So the Bureau of Indian Affairs, as we know today, has a long history. It is the oldest agency in the United States government, and it's a holdover from the Indian Office under British rule. It has long been staffed by individuals who, in the early part of its history, were land speculators who had ties to the railroads, who operated in what we would simply call today a very illegal manner. It's also responsible for what we call for what is known as the Bureau of Indian Education, which established the boarding schools throughout the United States. Many Native people have a history with those schools that is not pleasant or positive. There was a great deal of both physical, mental, and sexual abuse that occurred in those schools. The only good thing that I will say that the schools did is the very first woman ever confirmed by the United States Senate to an appointed position was the superintendent for the Bureau of Indian Education. The Bureau has often operated, and this was confirmed and held in the Cobell v. Salazar case. The Bureau is responsible for the federal trust responsibility, managing that, ensuring that tribes are provided with everything that they were guaranteed under federal law, helping them manage their resources, but also managing a series of money called trust funds, money that is held by the federal government in trust. If you look at the deed for a reservation, it does not say property of the tribe. What it says is property of the United States held in trust for insert tribe's name. It's the same title deed you will find for a national park, a national recreation area. That's what the Bureau manages, is that trust responsibility. Now, over time, the Bureau has changed. The Bureau has primarily been, throughout its history, staffed by non-Native people. That changed in a series of cases called the BIA cases, in which the BIA had started to provide tribal preference. If you were a federally recognized Indian, you got a preference to be hired to the Bureau. And that was challenged on the basis of racial discrimination. And the Supreme Court in those cases came down and said, no, tribal status has nothing to do with race. It's political. It is a political status, just like being a United States citizen. Now, you would assume that because the Bureau is now more primarily staffed by Native people, it would work more for the benefit of Native people. That is true in some cases, but it is still responsible for carrying out the laws passed by the United States Congress, of which we have had very few Native people ever elected to those seats. There's a great deal of joy and excitement about the appointment of Secretary Deb Haaland as the first Native woman and the first Native to head the Bureau, head the Department of the Interior. Yet she is still bound by the laws passed by the United States Congress, which generally do not work in favor of Native people. The Bureau has had a long history of mismanagement. There's approximately, I believe the number was around $37 billion in trust funds that it has not ever been able to account for. Those records were held in basements that were infected with the hantavirus, areas in which pipes burst and destroyed, ledgers were altered. So the Bureau as a whole does not have a very strong and positive history. It is getting better in that tribes now have the opportunity to opt for what is known as self-governance, in which they take all the roles and money from the Bureau and administer it themselves. They are subject to a federal trust audit where they come in and make sure they're carrying out that the tribe is carrying out the trust responsibility that the United States is supposed to. But the Bureau in and of itself is a void. Having worked for tribes for 15 years, there are a lot of ordinances that tribes pass that need to have approval by the Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs. It is not uncommon for a tribe to send that in and wait years. I personally handled one which took 4.5 years to get a secretarial approval on, because it just sat. It wasn't a high priority. So the Bureau is a very difficult thing to work with. And one of the things that is raised is, it's been 5 years since a tribe has received federal acknowledgement. In the world of federal acknowledgement, that's not a long time. There are tribes who've been waiting 20, 30 years for this and are still waiting for that. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the Bureau.
I sense that you were going to say some of the things you said, and I think, I became a citizen in 2008 of this country, and I certainly appreciate all the privileges and everything that this country has given me and my family. But also with that, I recognize all the unfortunate things that this country has done, especially to the Native peoples and African Americans and such. And so we certainly have a lot of institutions with the residue of this past sort of erasure, racism, and all these things that have happened. I continue to think, though, that that this decision, obviously we're not going to be, the item before us is not to take action. It's an informational item. But I would say that I continue to think that this, for lack of a better word, this decision, I'm not sure it's going to have a tremendous amount of power in the tribe taking it forward, because in the end, as you mentioned, and I assume what you're saying is accurate, it really is still going to require someone, a member of Congress, whether it's someone from our delegation here or someone else in the United States to carry this forward and carry the water for the tribe. And without that, even if we do say, yes, we recognize you here in the city of San Jose, we give you that recognition, if you will, symbolically, that it may not fundamentally change anything, because the folks that you all need to convince are people that at a higher pay grade than us, right? And so, anyhow, I very much appreciate, and I don't know if you want to say anything. I feel like you want to turn on your mic, and please.
I'm a professor. This is what we do. I would say that if you were to pass a resolution such as this, you're doing something a little more than being symbolic. There's a great deal of emphasis, particularly in higher ed and in governments now, to read land acknowledgements or have land acknowledgements recited at the start of meetings. Those have become performative acts, in that we did it, we feel really good about it, and then we go about our business. So passing this would not simply be symbolic, it would be putting action behind those type of statements. But unfortunately, as you said, this is a political process, and that, I am not a politician. I will never pretend to be one. You are. You have to figure that out for yourselves. But if you want to take and move beyond the performative, it does mean that you have to then consider what those consequences of that are and how it will impact everybody. But for the city to recognize and acknowledge in writing, in official action, the people who have called this place home and have taken care of it since time immemorial is more than symbolic. It's an actual action.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that perspective and that correction. Okay, well, that unfortunately is not before us today, but thank you so much for being here. I found it super interesting, and it inspires me to go take one of your classes, quite frankly. So thank you for all the information, and that's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, Council Member. Okay, we're going to come back around to Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor, and I want to thank the presenter for the last words that you said. I 100% agree, with you. We shouldn't devalue or depreciate something that, on black and white on a piece of paper, looks simple as a resolution and may or may not make a difference. Because really, what we're doing is we're humanizing the tribe, we're recognizing them, we're telling them that we see them, we're joining them in their campaign for recognition. So it's not just, I don't want people to feel like, oh, we do a resolution and it won't get anything accomplished. Obviously, it means a lot to the tribe. They're here in these chambers. It means a lot to the community. And that should be recognized by us. And I just, as somebody who was in the Brown Act, as somebody who met with you, Angel, and Sulma multiple times about this, I communicated, I know that you mentioned to Councilmember Torres that wasn't the record. I'm correcting the record now. I've told you both that any presentation about the tribal recognition should include the politics, should include how it's divisive, should include how the system has been weaponized against the public. And just by saying that's just not the record, that just isn't true. We've had those conversations, Hazel.
Councilmember, I have to respectfully disagree with that last statement. Okay. You and I have had this conversation, and the direction that we've implemented is the direction that came from ultimately your Brown Act, the Rules Committee, and that's what we've done here. If you want something different, you can ask for something different. But I do think that facts and truth is important, and I stand behind this. And to me, this means a whole lot because I understand this issue very personally, and so I have a personal opinion on this. That's not what I'm providing today, but I also think that the process that we followed has been true, and there's been no deception in it. And it is quite offensive to hear that there's this implication that we somehow did something different than what we've discussed. And so I think it's important to correct that record.
You've communicated, that there was hesitation to do this from the beginning from administration, Angel. So let's not pretend that that didn't exist. Okay. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands. Do we have a motion to accept the staff presentations?
There's no action. Do we need?
You don't need to accept it. It wasn't agendized for acceptance. It was agendized to just bring it back.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
receive the
fine.
information.
So we can, I'm not seeing any other hands then. We can move on if we'd like. Okay, thank you all. We are moving on to the next item. That's the end of item 3.4. We are on, we're in the middle of a city council meeting. You're not allowed to speak at this time. We're on item 6.1, which is the Stormwater Management Annual Report, 2023-2024. We have a staff presentation